I'm really very delighted this afternoon that Len Campanaro has agreed to come back. I know those of us who heard his first presentation here on elephants thoroughly enjoyed it, and I know today will be equally interesting, and that there are others hopefully to come. So you probably remember, most of you have been here before, that Len moved to St. Louis from the San Diego area, where he had been with the San Diego Zoo for many years. And Len was just telling me he just finished a program with our St. Louis Zoo and is going to be actively volunteering there. So I will say no more, but ask you to please take the mic and take it away.
Thank you and good afternoon. We are looking at a savanna in Africa, and that's going to be the setting today as we get familiar with, get intimate with two more animals. Back in February, we met the largest land mammal in the world, the elephant. Today, we're going to meet the tallest, the giraffe, and the second largest land mammal, rhinoceros. Now, if you recall, if you were with us in February, I gave you what the meaning of the word elephant was, and it's from the Greeks, meaning huge arch. Well, the word giraffe does not come from the Greeks. It's actually an Arab-derived word, zaratha, meaning one who walks swiftly. And the Arabs named this animal. They were the first to actually capture them, and they would give them as gifts to royalty of different countries in the old world. Giraffes are actually known by many names across Africa. One of the ones that I'm most familiar with is from Kenya and the Swahili language, twiga. But there are some 20 different local names. One that translates, one of the translations that I really enjoy is translates to one that bends acacia trees down. And if anybody knows giraffes, that's their favorite food is acacia trees. And we're going to talk about acacia trees a little bit later. So as we talk about names of things, when we're talking about a group of cows, we call them a herd. Or a group of monkeys, we call it a troop. Anybody have any idea what a group of giraffes is? It's a tower. It's a tower. It's quite appropriate for that. To give some background, scientists trace the origins of giraffes back about 20 million years. Historically, they ranged not just Africa, but also Europe and across Asia. The picture we have here on the right dates back to approximately 10,000 BC in the Republic of Niger. And it's a carving on the side of a cliff. And the carving is life-size. It's 19 feet tall. So people have been long fascinated with giraffes. For many, many decades at least, scientists believe that there were 9 species of giraffes. And the 9 species came from the fact that there were fundamentally 9 different patterns that you see in their coats. The shape of the pattern and the shades of brown and so forth. And there's 9 different patterns could be found in different regions of Africa, and they vary as the vegetation varied in those sections of Africa, and it worked as camouflage effectively for the animals versus predators. But with the advances of genetic science, in 2021, scientists agreed that there were really 4 species of giraffes. They're genetically distinct enough. And we've been seeing this phenomena in a number of different species where we thought it was 3 and it's 5, and we thought it was, more than 4, and it's really only 2, and the other 2 are subspecies. But in this case for giraffes, it is 4. Excuse me, is this podium in the way here?
No.
You're good? Okay. There are 4, and some of them have subspecies. So the 4 species now are recognized as Maasai, reticulated, northern, and southern. So let's see where you find those in Africa. So the modern habitat, much smaller than the historic habitat. And the other thing that should strike you about this as we look at this is that the habitats are quite fragmented, which is not good for animals because you can't roam and it impacts your breeding, that you're not getting a good mix of genetics. And that then creates problems in many species. So the Maasai, as you can see in the brownish red there, are in the lower part of Kenya and through Tanzania. The reticulated, the blue area, Ethiopia and northern Kenya. Then look at the northern species of giraffe, the yellow. Look how fragmented that is, stretched all across sub-Saharan Africa there to the north. And then in the south, again, a lot of fragmentation there, and the animal stretches from Namibia through South Africa and over to Mozambique. So quite a range for these animals and a lot of challenge for them. Environment, they typically like savannas, like the first picture I showed you, and scrublands. To give you a picture of what the 4 species look like, here on the left at the top, the northern with the Nubian subspecies, the southern with the South African subspecies, reticulated, and the Maasai. Now, if you're wondering what do we have at the St. Louis Zoo, we have reticulated at the St. Louis Zoo. They have rather amazing bodies. When you look at their exterior and we see their patterning, their pattern is as unique as our fingerprints. And for me at the zoo, I haven't learned the patterns of the giraffes at St. Louis yet, but at the San Diego Zoo, I would recognize the patterns by looking at something unique on the neck pattern of the animals at the zoo. And this is Harriet. And to give you an example, how I would recognize Harriet is right here in the middle of her neck, right there, is an upside down heart shape. And that's how I knew it was Harriet, okay? And there was another giraffe who had a baseball home plate pattern on the side. And that's how I'd recognize her. And there's Eloise, her last offspring when I was there. And Eloise is probably about 6 months old in that picture. But when you look internally at them, amazing bodies. A rather large heart, weighs 20 pounds, 2 feet long, pumping 20 gallons of blood a minute. You know, their blood pressure is twice what yours is when you're trying to do your taxes in April. You know, they're at 280 over 140. Their veins have an elastic quality with one-way valves. I mean, think about it. If you're standing upright and then you suddenly bend down, you know, you don't want a whole lot of blood, you know, flush into your head. You're going to pass out, you know. So the veins would constrict. And then likewise, when you're coming back up, you don't want that blood flushing back down into the body. And again, you would pass out. So you've got your one-way valves. The skin is very tight to the legs, and that's to keep blood from pooling in the legs. And it was actually the inspiration for G-suits for jet pilots and astronauts. And humans get a lot of ideas. We think we're so smart, but it's just basically looking at animals and looking at how nature deals with issues. And this was one that the giraffes gave us. Now, when we're hot, the human body perspires. It's the body's natural way of keeping itself cool or cooling down. Dogs, they pant. Giraffes neither perspire nor pant. Anybody have any guess about how they cool their bodies off? It's like an internal radiator system, almost. Each of those brown patches under them are a concentration of capillaries which are really close to the surface of the skin. So blood inside the body is coming forward close to the surface of the skin, where it's cooler, and that cools the blood and then cools that large body as it flows back through the body. When it comes to the cooling the brain, I don't have a real good picture of the face right here, but you can see that rather long nose that a giraffe has. There's a large membrane in there, and again, a lot of blood. So as blood flows through there and the animal is breathing in, okay, that air is then cooling the membrane and the blood flowing through there to help cool the brain. Really amazing animals. Now, I would ask the kids, what do you call those things on the top of their head? And they would say ears. I said, no, not the things on the side, the things on the very top. And the typical answer I got was horns or antlers. I sometimes even got antenna. So I would ask the kids, because if I told them what the name was and asked them to pronounce it, they'd be shy. I'd say, who here can say the words ice cream cone? And they all shout out ice cream cone. So I said, okay, now say the word ossicone. And they all shout out ossicone. They're not afraid to say it now. And I said, see, you came to the zoo and you learned a new word. They're called ossicones. And they get that name because it's bone attached to the skull, which is covered in skin, and they have tassels of hair on top. Now, when they're born with that hair up there. All giraffes, male and female, born with that hair up there. If you've ever seen a giraffe being born, the ossicones are actually sort of flat back against the skull. And basically, moms don't like giving birth to animals with horns. So it's flat back against the skull, and they come up fairly quickly. And it's at that stage of their life, it's cartilage. And it actually takes about 4 years for that cartilage actually to convert into bone and knit to the skull. Now, thing I would ask kids, I said, how can you tell whether it's a boy giraffe or a girl giraffe without looking underneath? And the answer is you look at the ossicones when they get older. I said they're all born with hair up there. Well, as they get older, okay, females, they continue to have hair on their head. The males go bald on the top. So you can see the two different pictures here. So that's a way of telling males from females. Now, they use them in a couple of different ways. One, the males will use them as part of the ritual of deciding who's going to get to breed. The males will bang their heads and necks together and so forth. But I always say the girls are too smart. They don't bang their heads together, okay? Giraffes are pollinators, and they use their ossicones and the hair in pollination. Now, if you think of my arm here as the trunk of a tree, and say the crown of the tree is here, males, being taller, tend to eat from either the side or the top of the crown. Females, being several feet shorter, tend to eat from underneath the crown of the tree. And in so doing, when they're under that, the hair on the ossicone gathers the pollen in the tree. Now, the trees are also part of the process, because acacia trees, they can actually sense its leaves being eaten. And the giraffe would just stand there and eat the tree bare in the course of a day. But after a few minutes, to keep that from happening, the tree will send bitter tasting toxins to that section of the tree, which the giraffe doesn't like, okay? So after eating in that one section for a few minutes, the giraffe will move on and go to another tree. So the pollen then gets spread to another tree. So giraffes are like bees, they're pollinators. So they're very, very important in Africa for that purpose. A number of animals are. We're going to talk about how rhinos play a part in this too. Big, beautiful eyes. Everybody's friend. Everybody wants to hang out with the giraffe because you got a nice tall vantage. You see the lion, the leopard, the hyenas all coming. Now the eyes are positioned on the side of the head. Being positioned on the side, as you see in the upper picture there, they have monocular vision. They do not have binocular vision, so they can't judge distance. They can see the lion coming, but they don't know how close he is, okay? Predators, humans, we're predators, eyes in the front, we can judge distance with that. But giraffes, to their defense, even though they can't judge distance, eyes on the side of your head, so you got a good view on each side, something coming at you, very large eyeballs, the size of a golf ball. The pupil of the eye is not round like ours. It has an oval shape. So it gives the giraffe on both sides of its head a panoramic view of the world. And they can see a lion off in a distance as far as 2 miles. So they've got plenty of warning. Now, I will tell you that lions are afraid of adult, healthy giraffes, and we'll talk about that more. But this is particularly important, though, for females with young, being able to detect this. And we'll get into that as we go. So another question I love to ask the kids is, how long is the giraffe's tongue, and why is it that color? Anybody's guess how long a giraffe's tongue is? Foot? If you got a 12-foot giraffe, then it's a foot. Basically, it works out in the world of giraffes that for every foot you are tall, your tongue is about 1 inch. When you're born, you're 6 feet tall. You're my size when you're born, okay? And as a female, when you grow up, you're going to be 14 to 15 feet tall. You're going to have a 14 to 15 inch long tongue. Males are typically 17 to 19. Sometimes they make it to 20 feet. So you're going to basically have a 17 to 19, 20 inch long tongue. Now, Mother Nature is very smart. And she knows giraffes have their tongue hanging out all the time, picking leaves off the top of a tree. So when I'd ask the kids, why do you think it turns purple? I normally start out with them, what color do you think it is? And they all say pink. And they say no. We finally get to the fact that it's dark purple or black. And why do you think it's that color? And they said it's from eating leaves. I said, no, if that was the case, it'd be green, okay? You know, it's actually to give them protection from the sun. It's sunblock for them. And but if you were looking inside the giraffe's mouth where it's not exposed to sun, you would see that it, in fact, was pink at the base. The tongue also is prehensile. In other words, they can manipulate it and wrap it around and grab things with it, as you see what this giraffe is doing. Another interesting thing about body in this picture is look at the position of the neck and the head. They can bend their heads back a lot further than we can. I mean, that's about as far back as we go. But they can go completely straight, so they can really reach up high to get those leaves that they want and maximize that. So who has more teeth? Okay, humans or giraffes? I mean, look at that big gap. There's no teeth up here, right? So you're probably going to, if they didn't have the mouth open, you'd probably say the giraffe has more teeth because it's got a bigger mouth. But look at that. The answer is, it's the same, correct, 32. They're just positioned differently. You know, they have 3 molars and 3 premolars on each side, where we have 3 molars and 2 premolars on each side, top and bottom. So a difference of 4 there. When it comes to canines, you know, we've got 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. They just have 2 on the bottom, and they're funny-looking canines, okay? They look like a hook backwards in the mouth on either side. And it has a special purpose. And I'll tell you what that special purpose is in a second after I finish telling you about incisors, okay? No incisors at the top. We've got 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom. They have 6 on the bottom. And between the incisors and those 2 funny-looking canines, a lot of times what giraffes do is if they've got a branch that they can get their mouth over and get a whole bunch of leaves at the same time, they put their mouth over the branch and they pull back, and they use those lower incisors as a rake. And those two funny looking canines basically as hooks to keep the leaves from flying out of their mouth. Now you might think that the roof of their mouth was like the roof of our mouth. It's not. It's covered in keratin, fingernail. Why do you got a fingernail on the roof of your mouth? Their favorite food is acacia. African acacia trees contain long thorns. Nobody wants a thorn stuck in the roof of their mouth. Okay? So now you're going to say, well, what about your tongue and your throat and everything else? Their saliva is extra heavy. So it coats the thorns, and the thorns just slide down that long neck. So, amazing, amazing animals. Adaptations for dealing with your environment. Who has more neck bones, us or the giraffe? It's the same. Everybody caught the cue, okay? 7. You know, ours are about yay big. Giraffes are each about close to 11 inches. So with 7 of them, he's got about a 7-foot long neck. There are over 5,000 mammals in the world, okay? They all have 7 bones in their neck except for 2. Have any guesses what those 2 are? One is a manatee. If you think about a manatee, they never turn their neck very much, okay? They only have 6 bones, so they can't turn their neck very much. The other one you'll find at the St. Louis Zoo is a sloth. Now, there's 4 different types of sloths, and I tell the kids sloths are sneaky. They can have anywhere from 5 to 9 neck vertebrae, so you never know about a sloth. But everybody else in the world of mammals all contain 7. Did you sleep very much last night? Okay, not if you were a giraffe. In a 24-hour period, they sleep anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours. Complete, that's it. And they do it in 5 and 10-minute snapshots called giraffe naps. And they can do it standing up or sitting down. Look at this one, resting his head. Okay, asleep. This one resting his head on his rump. You know. And their eyes could be wide open, and their ears will be moving around, trying to pick up sounds, even while they're sleeping. Okay, always on alert. So what do they do all night? I mean, obviously they're not staying up watching The Late Show. Any ideas? Well, giraffes, like cows, ruminants, they have a multi-chambered stomach. Everything they eat all day long, they regurgitate, chew it up again, and then swallow it again, and it goes into the next chamber of the stomach. So that's what they're busy doing all night long. They're browsers. They primarily like to eat leaves of trees. Acacia is their favorite. Reason being, acacia is high in calcium, unlike most leaves. And I already explained about the plant wanting to defend itself. And you can see some pictures here of giraffes browsing on the trees. They'll also eat the bark from the branches. They love that. They'll eat seeds, pods, flowers. And they're also known to chew on bones of dead animals as extra calcium. They get a lot of water from the leaves, and they can actually go for about 3 days without going to a watering hole to drink. Longevity in the wild versus managed care is quite a difference. Females, they'll live into their mid-20s in the wild, early 30s in managed care. Males, late teens in the wild, and then their mid-20s in managed care. And you see that with most animals. You're getting regular attention, seeing the doctor at least once a year, if not more. You know, getting someone in an accredited zoo is paying attention to you constantly, looking for signs that there is a problem. You're periodically testing your scat, periodically taking blood tests. So catching things early on. You're getting a constant diet, a well-rounded diet. You're not suffering from drought. All that then leads to a much longer lifespan. As they get older, you will see them darken up with age. If you go to the St. Louis Zoo, there is an older female. She is, I think, about 16 years of age. My memory serves me right, her name is Ellie. I'm still learning all the animal names yet. And then there's 3 younger ones that are ages 2 to 3. And you'll see there's quite a difference in the darkness of their brown coloration. As in most animals, the females sexually mature earlier than the males, and you can see the females are almost twice as fast as the males. So besides reaching for trees with that long neck, what else do you use it for? And the answer is necking. That's what this process is called, necking. 2 male giraffes, there's probably no females even around, but it's, they're both feeling their oats. They are going to bang their heads and necks together. And the process will go on 15 to 20 minutes. And it can get fairly violent. Nobody normally gets killed with that. But they're banging their necks with such force that they can actually lift each other up off the ground, all 4 feet. And male giraffes, depending on the species, weigh anywhere between 2,500 and 4,500 pounds. So normally what happens is somebody, gets tired and they stop. And he's the loser. And then the 2 of them just go about like nothing ever happened. They could go back to the same tree, both eating that tree. But it's decided when the female comes along, who's going to get to mate. And this is the process that goes on. One thing that they never do is they never kick each other. Kicking is reserved for defending themselves against lions and leopards and hyenas. Okay? And it can be deadly. And so they never kick each other. It's just simply banging necks. Now, they have been known to knock a bone out of place in a neck. So when at breeding time, there's only one way to check. Many mammals, even reptiles, in the roof of their mouth is an organ that they can smell with. And it's called the Jacobson's organ for the scientist who discovered it. And they particularly use it when they're trying to detect if a female is an estrus. And you might see an animal pull back its upper lip and inhale through the mouth to get extra air into the mouth. And by doing that, the air hits that Jacobson organ, and he can better determine if the female is in a state for breeding. And it's called the Flamen response. And most animals that do that, they're just simply inhaling the air. Well, giraffes go a step further. Giraffe males, when he sees a female urinating, he goes over and he tastes the urine and brings it into the roof of his mouth to the Jacobson organ to make his determination. And if she's an estrus, what he'll do is he'll take one of his forelegs and tap one of her hind legs that he wants to breed with her. And what she typically does is walk away from him. He will follow her for hours until eventually she stops. And he'll rest his chin on her back, and if she doesn't walk away, they're going to breed. So gestation for a baby giraffe is 14 to 15 months. Mom will give birth standing up, okay? Typically in the wild, what she's going to do is go off by herself. If she might happen to be with a few other giraffes, she'll go off by herself looking for tall grass. She wants to be as inconspicuous as she possibly can. And I've been fortunate in San Diego to see 2 giraffe babies born. And what happens is, at first, as she's walking around, well, at the zoo, because there's not tall grass for her to go off by herself, they just cordon off a section of the habitat. And she'll be in there. Still quite visible by all the guests, quite visible by all the other giraffes. And she'll be walking around, and then suddenly the front legs come out side by side. And then the head slips out along the legs. And she'll continue walking around, and everybody's watching, not just the guests, but all the other giraffes are all lined up watching. And she'll take that long neck of hers and bend around to see how delivery's going. And she just keeps walking around. And then all of a sudden, a front shoulder slips out, and swoosh, baby drops 6 feet to the ground, and it breaks the 3-foot umbilical cord. And the sudden thud is what wakes baby up to start breathing. It would be equivalent to a human baby getting spanked on the bottom to wake up and start breathing. Baby is trying to stand up within 5 minutes. It's trying to stand up with those wobbly little legs. And mom is in a hurry to clean up her newborn. And just the pressure of mom's tongue on the newborn, just licking the newborn, oftentimes knocks baby over. And it'll take baby close to a half hour or so before it's completely up on its feet, maybe as much as an hour. But normally with less than an hour, they're on their feet and they're up and they're nursing, as you can see here in these pictures. So, mom will clean her up, let her nurse. She'll pass the afterbirth, and then she will consume the afterbirth. Okay, she's a herbivore, but when it comes to the afterbirth, she's consuming it. And the reason she's doing that, cleaning up her baby, she's trying to get rid of all the odor of the newborn. Okay, so it doesn't attract lions and leopards. So once she's done all of that, in the wild, she'll move off a couple of 100 yards, leaving her baby in the tall grass by herself. And she'll watch from a distance for predators. And she would move in quickly if a predator shows. But what she wants to do is get any possible predator's attention away from where her baby is. If you've got several female giraffes having babies, oftentimes they'll put their babies together in a crutch, and they'll all stand off at a distance, guarding them. The weaning is 9 months. They do try to nurse beyond 9 months, and it's like clockwork. Moms know 9 months, and they'll push them away and just walk away from them. They will not let them wean. Mortality in the first year is about 50%, because they are going to succumb typically to predators. Growth in the first week is 1 inch a day. Okay, so they're born 6 feet tall, growing 1 inch a day. By the time they are 2 years old, they are 12 feet tall. Okay, so, and by the time they're 4 or 5, as a female, you're getting pretty close to your full size. You're up there at 14 or 15, and some male is going to look to want to breed with you. Their closest relative are okapi, okay? And it looks like it's a cross between a horse and a zebra. And when you go to the St. Louis Zoo, look at Red Rocks, and you'll find okapi there, and they're near where the giraffes are. It's the only other animal that will splay its legs to get down to water or food down on the ground. Like giraffes, they have a long, dark purple tongue as well. Now, everybody is familiar with the plight of elephants, but giraffes are undergoing what is called the quiet extinction. Only about 40,000 remain. That's far less than elephants. I mean, there's close to 500,000 elephants between African and Asian. Only about 80,000 remain. They're being poached as faux medicine. what would you use a giraffe for? Well, they take their brains and their bone marrow and sell it as a cure for AIDS. Doesn't cure anything. Their brain material, their bone marrow material is made of the same composition as our body components. Our body components cure nothing. Plants cure things, not animal body parts, no matter what animal body parts you're talking about. Sometimes they're poached as trophies. Adults, as you can see in this picture, are rarely attacked by lions. Why the lion is attacking here is she's got a young offspring. Now, as long as the baby stays by mom, the baby will be safe. If the baby gets scared and runs off, that's when the lion will get her. That leg is almost 7 feet long. It's very heavy. The hoof, okay, is quite heavy and quite wide. On a male's hoof is the size of a dinner plate. It's about 12 inches across. One blow, because those legs will swing in any direction, okay, all 4 legs any direction. One blow is capable of killing a lion. So lions typically are afraid of healthy full-grown giraffes. They'll go after young and they'll go after old sickly giraffes, but not healthy full-grown. The other problem that giraffes had is conflict with humans. And you say, why conflict with humans? As humans expand their territory and develop areas, you get more farmers, you get pastoralists with livestock, and you get conflict for the same types of foods that the giraffes are. And you get competition for water and so forth. And as I talked about, habitat fragmentation as well. So that poses a problem for giraffes. The status from the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, which I talked about, was a worldwide independent body that monitors what's going on with animals. Between the 4 species, classifies them anywhere from vulnerable to critically endangered. So all giraffes are in trouble. But there's hope, with help from all of us. You'll find in northern Kenya an organization called Twiga Walinzi, which translates to meaning giraffe guards. You'll find different sanctuaries. I've listed a couple here. Sahara Camp, Lasaba Conservancy. These are basically community-led programs established by local people, and they get a lot of funding to do the work that they do from accredited zoos. If you recall, and I'm only repeating this because it's been a couple of months, that accredited zoos in North America, and there's only about 240 of them, and this was a figure that predates the pandemic, so it may be bigger now, basically provided about almost $250 million in work to save animals in the wild. So when you're going to your local accredited zoo, and like I say, only 1 in 10 is accredited, St. Louis is one of those, you're basically going to help save animals in the wild. And St. Louis is involved with the Northern Rangeland Trust, which is also an organization that helps different animals, including giraffes. So these organizations, with the funding and the support from scientists from the zoo, not only learning and educating people about migratory paths of the animals, how to avoid these conflicts, providing education to the pastoralists, to engage in better animal husbandry practices so their herds stay healthy, and help fund the security rangers, as I indicated here, the Twiga Walinzi. So, as I always say, is definitely support our zoo. Some fun facts about giraffes before we leave giraffes. At night, besides regurgitating what they ate during the day, they like to hum. Okay, I've never heard a giraffe hum, but they like to hum. Giraffes are afraid of lifting their foot more than 1.5 feet off the ground. They're afraid of falling down. And if you think about it, they fall down, you break a leg, life is over. But But if they have to flee danger, they will leap a 5-foot fence. Yeah, that big body will go over a 5-foot fence. They walk like camels. Okay, normally when we think of a 4-legged animal walking, the right front and the left rear kind of move forward, and then the left front and the right rear move forward. Camels and giraffes, they'll move the right forward, as you see in the upper picture, and then the left will be the next ones to follow. But they run like rabbits. They gallop like rabbits. And when they run, they run front legs passing between the back legs. So they're galloping like a rabbit, as you can see here in the bottom picture. Easy way to remember World Giraffe Day. It's the longest day of the year, June 21st. My favorite read when it comes to giraffes, if you want to learn some more about them, is a book called Tall Blondes. And it's written by Lynn Shear. The name may sound familiar. She was a network news anchor, and she was absolutely in love with giraffes. And it's a fun, easy read, so I highly recommend this book. Okay, let's move on and talk about the second largest land mammal. Look at that body. It looks like armor, doesn't it? Yeah, but it's not, okay? It's part of this animal's camouflage. And it looks like it's really rugged. It's probably about 1 inch thick, but it's still very, very sensitive. They can feel a fly land on them like you do, okay? They get sunburned like we do. They'll often roll around in mud puddles and they find one and so forth. And it's just part of camouflage. We're looking there at a greater one-horn or Indian rhino, known as that as well. And the reason they have that, they live, this particular species lives in the foothills of the Himalayas. And when they're sleeping amongst the rocks, they look like another rock. Absolutely look like another rock. And even the habitat in San Diego has a lot of rocks in it. And one day I'm in front of the rhinos and I'm talking about them, and somebody comes up to me and says, "Where's the rhino?" And I said, "He's right there. He just happens to be sleeping amongst the rocks." And the person couldn't believe how well it camouflages. There's 3 distinct characteristics in a rhino. Of course, the horn, okay? They have round feet with 3 toes. Their weight all carries on the middle toe. The 2 side toes are just for balance. And then they have rather broad, flat teeth. Look at the size of those molars, okay? There are no teeth in the front, no incisors. They have prehensile upper lips, okay? In other words, like the giraffe's tongue, they can grab things with their tongue. The rhino can grab things with his upper lip. The upper lip will have one of 2 shapes. Either it's going to be a V shape, okay? And if it's a V shape, that's an indicator that that type of rhino likes to eat leaves from bushes, okay? And they can grab the leaf. You might see some of them grab some grass, but they mainly like to eat the leaves from bushes. Or you can have a square off, or rather wide upper lip, and that indicates you're a grazer, that you like to eat grasses, okay? And you'll go along like you were cutting a lawn. They're all nearsighted. They rely on their sense of smell and their hearing. If you scare a rhino, unlike other animals that get scared, they run away, especially if they're not predators. Rhinos do not run away. What has worked for them for millions of years is go crush whatever scares you. So wherever the smell is coming from or the sound is coming from, they're going to charge hard at that sound. And they've been known to run down trees. Okay? They do have a relationship with tick birds, which, as you can see here in this picture, oftentimes will ride on their back. It's a rather symbiotic relationship. The birds are on their back feeding off of the little insects that get into the folds of the skin. And then if the birds, because they see a lot better, sees a predator coming, they're going to make noise and alert the rhino to that as well. Closest relatives are horses and tapirs, which are also odd-toed animals. As some background, scientists trace the roots of rhino back some 55 million years. Over time, there have been 60 different species of rhino. Today, we have 5 species, and they're broken into 2 subfamilies: Asian rhino, which date back about 26 million years, and African rhino. And most people tend to think of rhinos, they always think about the African rhino, but Asian have been around a lot longer. So we have up here another one of the, this one is the Sumatran rhino, okay? So that would be off the island of Sumatra in Indonesia. And then down here, we have a southern white rhino in this picture. And I think you can see, this may be hard from your seats, but he has that squared off lip right here and the 2 horns. Historic range, they were found not just in Asia and Africa, but also Europe and North America. And they would have come here crossing the Bering Land Bridge during the height of the Ice Age. It was 1,000 miles wide and dry. I mentioned earlier 5 species remained. The greater one-horn or Indian rhino, roughly about 3,000. And that's a good number because this species of rhino, they were down to about 100 or so. They were found in India, Nepal, and Pakistan. And they weren't being well protected. But the Indian government got tough on poachers. I actually think they started shooting the poachers. And the numbers have improved, so they're up over 3,000. They're completely gone from Pakistan. Most of the population is in northern India near the Himalayas, and there's a few left in Nepal. Then we have the Sumatran and Javan. Their numbers are really bad shape. They're critically endangered, as you can see, roughly 50, roughly 30. And there's what the Javan rhino looks like. And they're really on the small side, between about 1,000, an adult between about 1,000 and 2,000 pounds. Black rhino from Africa, roughly 6,000. And they are in more trouble than the Indian rhino, even though they've got a bigger population, because the Indian rhino population is increasing. The black rhino population is decreasing. So they're more critically endangered. The southern white rhino, 20,000. They've been fairly stable there. A little bit of pressure on it, pushing it downward, but not as drastically as the black. And then northern white rhino are functionally extinct. There's only 2 left in the world. They live under 24-hour guard on a reserve in Kenya, mother and daughter, and there's their picture. Okay, they're the last 2. And but there's hope, and I'll talk about that. You kind of say, how's there hope? There are male, and there are 2 females, and they're related. There's hope. We'll talk about that. How do you identify a rhino? When you go to the zoo, well, I'll give you some hints, and you can impress your grandkids when you go. 5 species. There are no Sumatran and Javan rhinos in any zoo in North America. They're all back on the islands, and they're trying to get their numbers up. I mentioned the Sumatran being the smallest, 1 to 2,000 pounds. The Indian rhino, black and white rhino, that's southern white rhino, you'll find in zoos across North America. So you could have any one of these 3. So if you go to the zoo and you see they only have 1 horn on the tip of the nose, you know it's an Indian rhino or a greater one-horn rhino. They also happen to be the tallest of all rhino species. They stand 6.5 feet tall at the shoulder, okay? Their weight-wise is roughly 5,000 pounds, give or take. Your big problem is if it's got 2 horns. Is it black or white? Well, They're not black and they're not white. They're both gray. They both look the same color-wise. How do they get that color? How do they get that name? Excuse me. When the English scientists back when go to South Africa and they're talking with the Afrikaners there and they're speaking a dialect of Dutch and they're describing them, the Afrikaners are saying a word that sounds like vies, and the English took that to mean white, but what they were saying was wide. They were referring to that wide mouth. Anyhow, the English dubbed them the white rhino. Later, the English see what looks like a black rhino. And they said, oh, if that's white, this must be the black rhino. Turns out the rhino happened to be wallowing in black mud. So the rhino was wallowing in black mud, had a V-shaped, pointed or V-shaped upper lip, and they are now known as the black rhino. So when you go to the zoo, look at the lip. Is it V-shaped or is it straight, squared across? Now the white rhino happens to be the heaviest of all. They weigh about 6,000 pounds. So it'd be the size of a nice sized pickup truck. Okay, we're talking about horns. What's it made out of? Any guesses?
Ivory.
Ivory? No.
Hair.
Hair, that's right. It's made out of keratin, fingernail or hair. It's not attached to the skull. Think about it. Your fingernail is not attached to the bones in your finger. Your fingernail grows from the skin cells. It's the same thing for the rhino's horn. It grows from the cells in his nose, in his face. When we're sick, we don't chew our fingernails to get better. Right? Doesn't work. So why would you spend thousands of dollars for rhino horn or ground up rhino horn as a cure for anything from hangovers to cancer? But people do. Okay? It cures nothing. It's a con game. It's a con game. Remember? No animal body parts cure anything. The horn on the tip of the nose, okay, here, this white rhino that we have, is known as the nasal horn. And on a white rhino, it can grow out 5 to 6 feet. On a black rhino, 3 to 4 feet. Okay? I mean, imagine a 6,000-pound animal with a 5 or 6 foot horn charging at you at 35 miles an hour. You definitely don't want to scare him. Okay? The second horn, which is positioned more up on the face towards where the eyes are, is called the facial horn. Before I talk about the facial, I should have said on the Indian rhino, their horn only grows about a foot. That's it. But they have rather large canines, okay, which they also use to defend themselves with very effectively against tigers. But anyhow, their horn only grows about a foot. The facial horn is found, like I said, on the black and white rhino, and that'll grow out more than a foot, sometimes as much as 2 feet. Again, moms don't like giving birth to babies with horns. No horn when they're born, okay? That grows as they mature. Habitat in Asia is basically marshy grasslands to the foothills of the Himalayas, and they'll go up as high as 9,000 feet. Africa, it's basically going to be the savannas and red rock deserts. Wherever there's an abundance of food, they'll call it home. They're herbivores, grasses, aquatic plants, fruits, flowers, saplings, and exactly what they eat varies by the different species, and it's basically what grows a lot in their particular region. They're feeding 12 to 14 hours a day, okay? And it's all that coming in. And they, likewise, as I indicate here, modify the foraging based on the seasons and the weather conditions. They, like giraffes, help plants. They are seed dispersers. So they chew up what they're eating, but they don't crush the seeds. So the seeds pass through the digestive system, surrounded by their dung. So the seed now has nice, warm, moist fertilizer for plants to grow from. So they're part of the entire system, ecological system. They like to stay near water, but they can survive just off of moisture in their plants for 4 to 5 days. Males tend to generally be solitary. They'll establish a territory, and they don't want other males around because they don't want competition. If they come across the dung of another male, remember I said they rely on a sense of smell, it's another male, they're not going to like that. What they're going to do is kick the other male's dung away and actually do their own thing on top of it. They want to get rid of the other male's scent, doesn't want the females to pick up on it. Now, females tend to hang together in a group with their young, and that is called a crash. Okay, so giraffes were a tower, a group of rhinos is a crash. When it comes to swimming, Asians live around a lot of water. 2 species live on islands, and the third lives in the Himalayas, lots of rivers. Africans, not so much, and they swim like rocks, so they cannot swim. Running speed depends on your species. Blacks do about 25 miles an hour. Indian rhino can do up to about 35 miles an hour. They all love mud. It's not only cooling and sunblock, but it also protects their skin from the bites of parasites. So you'll often find rhino wallowing around. They make a variety of different sounds. A snort might be a greeting. Honking would be that they're going to fight or flee. Bleat for courtship. A moo type grunt, mom calling its calf. A shriek for alarm. And if you remember when I talked about elephants, that they have large cavities in that skull of theirs, they can make infrasounds that they can hear. Likewise, rhinos can do it as well, but it hasn't been studied as well in rhinos as it has in elephants. So I really can't go into giving you more details like I did with elephants, but just to know that they have that similar capability of elephants to talk to each other infrasonically below the hearing range of humans. Scent is important, so they do communicate with scent. The male is going to mark his territory, leaving dung piles around. They can spray up to 16 feet, so don't want to get too close to a rhino, even at the zoo. You never know if he turns the wrong way to you. Stand back. Females typically only are going to spray when they want to breed. They want to get their scent out there. They want the male to basically pick it on up. They can also leave scents with their glands in their feet, indicating sexual readiness. Reproduction is 16 months. Okay, it's second longest only to elephants. Baby's going to weigh between 90 and 100 pounds, depending on species. Maturity is going to vary by species, but on average about 7 years for a female, 10 for a male. Longevity also varies by species. Excuse me, let me grab some water. Sorry about that. Longevity also varies by species. From between 30 and 45 years. Black rhino are going to be on the lower end of this scale. The Indian rhino towards the higher end of the scale. Their problem, like most animals in trouble, is humans. 2 are killed every day poaching for their horn. You may have heard that conservationists trying to save the animals have sedated the animal, sawed off the horn, and then painted over the remaining stub, with pink or purple paint or die, I shouldn't say paint, I should say die, so that it's not appealing. But it's turned out it's not effective, because when the poachers are tracking after the animals and they catch up and they see that the animal has no horn, they're rather angry about it, of all the time they wasted, and they kill the animal anyhow, because they don't want to waste their time again. Vietnam is the largest market for this, and China is number 2. They also suffer from habitat loss, many times due to illegal logging and palm oil plantations in Asia for a plant that isn't supposed to grow in Asia, it's supposed to grow in Africa. They also lose habitat for agriculture, as I talked about earlier, as either for pastoralist or for grazing crops. And then when the animals are looking for food, and they see these nice, tasty melons that someone's growing of some sort, they naturally are going to go eat it, and it's going to cause a conflict with humans, so the animals then tend to get shot as well. Now, there is hope. Let me first come back to the northern white rhino. Remember I said there was 2. This is a project that started in 2015 in the San Diego Zoo Safari Park to save northern white rhino. In the mid-1970s, the zoo started what they called the frozen zoo. St. Louis has a version of this which doesn't go back quite as far. But at the frozen zoo in San Diego, they have samples of cellular samples from over 10,000 different animals, representing more than 1,000 different species. And they have cells from a dozen different northern white rhino. And the intention of the project is to take the cells from a northern white male, coax it into becoming sperm, and from a northern white female and coax it into becoming an egg, combine it to form a gamete, and then implant into a southern white female to carry it to term. The zoo's spending about $4 million a year on this, and it's about a 10 to 15-year project. 2 different teams of scientists working it. One is working on the cell technology, and one is working on artificially inseminating a rhino. The cell technology has been done successfully with mice, and the next step was to do it successfully with horses. Horses are similar characteristics genetically to the rhino. The problem with the artificial insemination, you would think, should be fairly easy, but it's really not. The birth canal for a rhino is about 4 feet long, and the 2 ovaries are not close to each other. The right ovary is about 2 feet up the birth canal, the left ovary is about 4 feet up the birth canal. The eggs come from the left ovary, 4 feet up the birth canal. So you've got to get in quite a distance. The ovaries in the rhino's large body move around in the body. And to add another degree of difficulty, the birth canal has a corkscrew shape. So a team of scientists had to perfect doing this. Well, they wanted to get good, healthy young females. And they went to a reserve in Africa and acquired 6 southern white rhino females and flew them from Africa to San Diego. And when they got there, the rhinos were afraid of people and afraid of trucks because they get shot by people from trucks. The keepers got them past that, got them to trust them. They'll respond to their name. They've named them, they'll call individual names. In fact, in this picture here, her name is Amani. And Amani has a 16-inch scar along her side that you can see here. She had a small wound when she arrived, and the doctors treated it, and it wouldn't heal. So they figured there was something in there they couldn't see.
They used the zoo's x-ray equipment and still didn't see anything. So they went to Border Patrol to borrow their x-ray equipment, because it peers into the sides of vehicles and sees if there's drugs and guns and so forth. Didn't see anything. They then found out that the bomb squad has the most sophisticated x-ray equipment. So they asked the bomb squad to come out. Of course, that brought the FBI out as well. But they found she had in fact been shot, and it was deep. But now they knew where it was, and they successfully removed it. To do it, she had resulted with a 16-inch scar. She's quite all healed up. She answers to her name. I've even gotten to pet her and give her a back rub. They are so trusting now that when the scientists want to do an examination, they will stand. They stand in a restraint. They'll walk in on their own in a restraint box, and they'll just stand there calmly and allow the scientist to actually do an internal examination. The zoo has been successful now. What they've got to do is prove that all 6 females can carry to term, and besides proving that they can do it. The zoo's been successful with 2 of them so far, and the animals carrying to term and actually having babies. So there is hope that we don't lose the northern white rhino, that we bring them back from the brink. International Rhino Foundation has been formed to try to protect rhinos and get countries on board with this. Northern Rangeland Trust, a sanctuary for rhinos in northern Kenya. The St. Louis Zoo supports and does projects with the Northern Rangeland Trust. So these organizations are supported both scientifically and financially by AZA accredited zoos. So again, support our zoo and don't buy illegal trade items. Some fun facts about rhinos. Okay, giraffes means one who walks swiftly. Rhinoceros from the Greek, nose horn. That's where the word comes from. At one time, this goes back many thousands of years, there was a rhino in Mongolia that stood over 20 feet tall. They were known as the giraffe rhino. Imagine a rhinoceros that tall, taller than a giraffe. Rhinos like tummy rubs. I've given a number of tummy rubs in my time. And if you're going to feed a rhino, okay, you put food in your hand and you stick your hand in his mouth. He's got no front teeth. Remember I said no incisors. And he's a herbivore, so he's not going to bite you. And with that prehensile lip, and you can see here the V-shaped lip here, the pointed lip, he sweeps the food back into the back of his mouth, okay? The only thing about it is it's a little messy because his saliva is more like our mucus, okay? But he will not bite you. It's a lot of fun. I've gotten to do it a couple of times. My favorite read when it comes to rhinos, there's a number of books on rhinos, and no one in particular kind of jumps out at me, and that I've read, none that jumped out at me. But this one I decided to put up here because I've been talking about animals helping plants and plants helping animals. And the book is called The Ghost of Evolution. It's not about animals, it's about plants. But the main thrust of the book is that it talks about how animals and plants are so interrelated. And the fact that when you lose animals that go extinct, we also lose plants that go extinct. So there's a ripple down effect. The entire environment is kind of one system, plants and animals, and we all need each other. Okay, so this is my recommendation for this area. So thank you very much for listening. Any questions?
First of all, let me just say thank you, Len, for another fascinating talk. I know we all... And a little secret, I don't think we've heard all the things that Len can speak with us about, so, I'm crossing my fingers he'll come another time. Were there any questions? We are a little past our 3:30. Here, David.
Yes, sir.
Do either giraffes or rhinos have multiple births? There's only
No,
one birth.
no, it's typically just one.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is a rather large baby in both cases. Yes, ma'am.
How do we get acacia leaves here for them, or do we have something else we use to feed the giraffes here?
They will import it from Florida, but what zoos do is when they can't get a natural, they'll find a close substitute, but then they will also supplement with vitamins and minerals that the animal needs. Yeah, because some animals, they'll get mineral supplements by actually eating dirt. Yeah. So we're not having them eat, animals in the zoos eat dirt, but we do give them supplements. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Could you describe a little bit what the St. Louis Zoo is doing in terms of establishing a safari-like place like San Diego Zoo has?
Yeah, I'm really new to the zoo. I've only been here since August. And the program to start new oncoming volunteers at the zoo didn't start until March. So I've only been out there a little bit. There's a lot of construction work going on out there. There are several species of animals living out there amongst Giraffes zebra, which were in the news, and that's really important because Giraffes zebras are in a lot of trouble in the wild. Been most endangered of the 3 zebra species. I think only about 2,500 remain in the wild. So there are zoo keepers who are now permanently assigned working out of there. They have structures there, barns there for the animals at night that need to come in at night, but they're there, they're tended, they've got vet services. But it's expected that it should be completed by 2027. But beyond that, I really don't have a lot of details. It's a little smaller than San Diego. I think here it's a little under 500 acres. San Diego's about 1,800 acres.
Where is it located?
In the north part of the county. I haven't been out there myself. You would take the interstate wrapped around to the north side of St. Louis, and it's a little north of that. I always have to pull out, MapQuest to getting around that. So I can find a few things, but other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what brought you to St. Louis from the San Diego Zoo?
Family. Moving close to family. We were there by ourselves. So.
And he lives just down the road from us, unfortunately not here, but just down the road. So it's not too far for you to come back, is it?
No, it's not. It's only about 10-15 minute drive. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you, and I apologize for running over.